Hey, good evening. This is Mark here with JTech. Thank you for joining me tonight. What we're getting ready to do here tonight is we're going to take out a spring-loaded shock absorber out of the front of a 2006 Chevrolet Colorado, and we're going to get ready to swap the shock out over at the spring compressor when we can get it together and get it down. Okay, what we've done here now is I've taken my wheel off and we've got it ready to go. So the first thing I'm going to do is take my sway bar bushing or sway bar link out or off, loosen it up. So I want to start by doing that first. All right. Where'd my nut go? It's in there. There we go. One nut. Okay, I'll swap my socket out because what I want to do is take and loosen up the lower shock mounting bolt. And that'll be on here. And okay, got my lower shock mounting bolt loose. There's the nut. And I'm going to set this here. And since we're on a hoist, I'm going to go ahead and use a 15mm wrench, and I'm going to take this top stud loose, or the top three studs loose. And all right, there's my bottom bolt. All right, now what I'm going to do is turn my wheel forward, and that's going to allow me to snake this shock absorber out the right-hand side. So I'm taking that loose. And take my top nut off, and that'll take care of that. And just a matter now of just playing with a little bit, will come out. Okay, there we go. There's our spring loaded shock absorber that we're going to get ready to put in the spring compressor to change this shock out. So anyway, I'll be back with you in a moment when I get this thing jigged up and ready to go in the spring compressor. Good evening. This is Mark here again with JTech, and this evening what we're going to do is take a little bit of time to show you folks how to change a spring-loaded shock absorber out. First thing we want to do is obviously remove the part. Well, we've already taken the liberty of removing the part, and that way we can get down to the brass tacks of what we're actually doing here today. Okay, and what we've done is we've kind of set this thing up a little bit. We've preloaded it and unloaded it, and so everything works fairly reasonable because everything was fairly tight when we first started. So anyway, with no further ado, the first thing you want to do is jig the spring into our spring compressor. All right, this is a wall-mounted device that we've used. And the next thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you get as low a bite as you possibly can on the spring and as high a bite as you can on the spring so that you have very little bow in the center and you can get it to give rather quickly off the seats for the top and the bottom. Once you get this in here and get it centered, then we have little thumb wheels that you spin to lock in the upper device or the upper jaws on the device. Okay, these do not have to be brute tight. They just be finger tight because all they do is they jam the lower jaw into the upper jaw, which prevents the spring from snapping out in the event you should have a problem. So now I've spun those together, and now everything's good to go. So what I'm fixing to do now is I'm going to loosen the loosen the spring up or compress it just enough till I can feel this shock absorber take a little load off. I'm going to adjust the camera here so maybe you can kind of get an idea what I'm doing. All right, sorry about it chopping my head off, but it is what it is. These are videos here at school. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn around and I'm going to start spring loading this thing. And what I'm feeling for is to feel for this shock absorber to start to give a little bit. Once it gives a little bit, then I know, okay, as you can see, I'm able to shoot it or wiggle it around. You might be able to hear it. That's telling me that I've taken some load off of the shock absorber, and the spring now is arrested by the device on the wall, which is the spring compressor. The next thing I want to do is take my handy-dandy impact wrench, make sure I got it going the right direction. Okay, and then what I want to do is I'm going to use it to remove this top nut. Sometimes these nuts won't immediately come loose like they're supposed to if they've been on there a while. That's why I fought with this one earlier to loosen it up, to make sure that we were in good shape to take it apart. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to zip it off, Okay, now my nut is loose and on the floor, but my nut is loose, and now I can take off the top shock absorber bushing and washer, as well as the isolator bushing that is on top of the spring, and then you can lower that shock down out of there pretty slick. And then what you end up with is your shock absorber, which has got pretty much a hard mount like you would have on a strut. Okay, then you got your underside washer, or underside rubber bushing, your underside washer, and then of course your dust boot, which protects your sleeve. Okay, then you would take your new shock absorber and you'd put it all back together to make sure that everything was good to go. Once again, all you're doing is you're just reversing the order in which you took these things off. So you're going to do this, push this back together, do this, push this back together, push the boot on. You'd have brand new boots. If you're buying new shocks, they will come with new boots. Okay, from there then, you'll notice that you have a notch here that has to be lined up with the bottom of your spring, as well as you have a notch in this rubber. If I can show it to you right there, that notch in the rubber also has to be lined up with the top of the spring. If those two are lined up, you're in pretty good shape. And I'll show you one last alignment that we have is between the isolator bushing and the top rubber bushing. You're going to have an area here that's flat where it's been laying in here without any indentations. It kind of gives you an idea on where to index this top plate. So what we're going to do first is we're going to take the isolator bushing. I'm going to put it back on here on the spring and get it to stop at the spot on the spring that we need it. I'm going to take the lower mounting point and I'm going to index it as well, and it now is locked in. The top is locked in. Okay, I'm going to look and see where my flat parts are on this upper bushing or upper isolator, and it looks like it's about right there. And then I'm going to take my brand new bushing that I'm using for the top, as well as the washer, and then I'm going to screw my lock nut back down on top of the shock. And then from there, we'll take our impact wrench. We'll just shoot it down real quickly. Make sure everything's where it's supposed to be. All right, now I've got that down rather lightly, but I want to check and make sure my indexes are where they're supposed to be. Everything looks good. So now I'm going to release my spring pressure. I'm going to back this back off, and after the spring pressure is released, you can then go back in and do a final tightening on the shock, because now it's going to hold itself for the most part. If it does not hold itself, you have a hex wrench head inside the top of the shock. It's unlike most shocks where they come through and they got a flat the flat bar head on it, where you can hold it with like a 1/4 inch wrench and then another nut. This one will actually have a hex head or Allen wrench, and then you can tighten the nut down from there. And what you got to do is you hold this the piston is basically what you're holding with the Allen wrench to keep it from spinning. That way you don't goof up the washers or the seals inside the shock absorber. And for the most part, that's pretty much it. That's how you change a internally sprung shock absorber. Again, here at JTech, what we're going to do this evening is we're going to show you how to put back a sprung shock absorber out of for the front of a 2006 Chevy Colorado, after we have just got done rebuilding it on the strut machine. So what we're going to do first is we're going to turn around and we're going to get this thing mounted up in here. It should go pretty straightforward. Make sure I got my holes where I want them. Look good. So first thing we want to do is to turn around and work this unit back up in here as best we can over the upper A-arm. So what we're doing now is I've got it stuck back up in here pretty decent, and voila, I've got it started in there. So now what I'm going to do is take a nut And I'm going to start this nut on at least one bolt or one stud so this thing will stay up here. All right. And then next, what I'm going to do is turn around and I'm going to take a bolt that goes in the bottom, and I'm going to start this bolt in the bottom shock absorber mount bolt. So as we wiggle this around here, we may have to move the A-arm up and down just a little bit. That's pretty simple to do. Just kind of wiggle it around a little bit. A little bit of leverage goes a long ways. Put on that to make sure that the thing stays on after I'm done playing with it. So I'm going to start this on here by hand. Okay, the nut is on by hand. Everything looks good. And got my nut started on top. So on the bottom, I'm going to turn around and I'm going to take my ratchet or my impact, and I'm going to put these babies back on, snug it up. All right, got that one done. And then next I'm going to take my 15mm wrench that I have, and I'm going to have to tighten these up by hand because we're on a hoist. Now we got these tight. Okay, the one last thing I have left to do is I got to connect my sway bar link to the bottom, and it's got a bolt in it. And so what we're going to do is push down or put it through the hole as best we can, raise it up a little bit, and there we go. All right, we've now got the sway bar link connected, and it's just a matter of tightening the bolt up. So we've got the nut on there, and change my socket, turn around and use a 17mm to put that back on. Okay, and that's pretty much it. The only thing we have left to do now would be to put the wheel on and get it tightened up, and then take it over the alignment rack if it needs to be aligned. That's the best thing. The best time to do it is now. Usually with this type of a change out, you don't have to do an alignment for the simple fact that it was nothing more than a shock absorber, unlike a strut, where a strut may have some adjustments on the top to control your caster camber. So just want to let you guys know that. Other than that, we're good to go. And I appreciate you watching this video, and thank you very much. And